Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions, how we overcome challenges and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello. So my guest today is Steph Bovis, a yin yoga and meditation teacher, host, and voice artist based out of Singapore. Hi, Steph.
Hi, Jenn. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so just to give everyone listening here a little introduction on Steph, I went to high school together with Steph in Taiwan, and she's a few years younger than me, but I will forever remember her as a great athlete, slightly rebellious of a student with lots of energy. We didn't really keep in touch after we all graduated, but over the years, thanks to social media, I saw that she had thrived in the entertainment industry in Asia. Also super fit, constantly working out, doing a lot of HIIT programs. And then most recently this year, I reconnected with her through Instagram and noticed that she kind of went 180. Her high entertainment, glamorous looking lifestyle suddenly looked very calming and very zen. So I reached out to her to learn a little bit more about how she ended up transitioning into yin and her meditation journey. And so excited that she's agreed to come and share with us how that road has been for her and get naked.
Do you have memories of the rebellious, Lexi days? Is that, are we talking about those days?
Those days, I actually have very bad memory, but I don't know. I think, just probably, the girl who would get in trouble or like who would speak up against the coaches or something like that.
Yeah, I did get in trouble actually. I was a very good student, but I did get in trouble. One that was pretty public, I remember. Young and stupid, young, wild and free.
Very ballsy, I think. I think that's, had a lot of character.
Yeah, but that's an interesting perception. I mean, I when I look back, I think I walked around with a sense of gravitas and thought I knew everything. And, there was a lot of energy, but you have to find that balance. I remember speaking to my sister who's, 2 years younger than me. She also went to TAS and she's rather calm. I sort of introduced her to the wild side for a brief moment. And she would always tell me like, Steph, it's so much better to live life in this sort of balanced, stable, and I was like, no, but going through the highs and then the lows and then the highs again, like that's exciting and fun.
Yeah. And, I think my sister said that to me too.
Right. And I know they're all different and I don't know, we're definitely cut from same cloth, but very different. But I'm starting to recognize maybe a decade on that she had some merit to that statement because, highs and the lows are fun for some time, but at some point you're going to have to balance out a bit, right? Balance out your energy, balance out who you try to hang out or what you want to share with people, who you want to open yourself up to people, what energies you want to get into your life. So shout out to my sister, Kath.
Oh, I'm sure she'll be very proud to listen to this episode.
I'll send it over to her.
Yeah. So, why don't you start diving into sharing with us?
So, I got into the fitness industry about a decade ago with Ritual Gym. They're a boutique gym that specializes in HIIT. They've, since the pandemic, they've completely pivoted and, started an app. It was quite amazing. Within 3 weeks, they came out with a minimal viable product for people to train, use it, same programs at Ritual, but at home. And since then, they've just been sort of adapting and growing in that space, as well as their physical gyms in Singapore and around the world. So I was with them for a while. Back in those days, my main emphasis or priority was to maintain these 6-pack abs all day, 24 hours a day, every single day. Like that was just what was on my mind.
And of course, why was that on your mind? Like what?
Yeah, she, I mean, there's comes a time where, your physicality, if you know what I think I started learning the science of fitness, and, I was always a gym rat, but I would be at a gym for like an hour and a half just training, thinking that like, the longer you're in a gym, the better it is.
So you didn't add the diet part to it
Well,
then.
no, I wasn't training smart. I wasn't training efficiently. Now
Right.
I know that, when you're doing some, let's say, overhead press, and then you take 5-minute break before you do the next movement, that's not training efficiently. So the
Mm.
HIIT format really excited myself, and it also changed my body completely. And it's something that I've still stick to this day. But then I started realizing, whoa, okay, now I'm starting to get some, this is the definition there and there. And I just got rather obsessed, and this was when I was, early mid 20s. I had the energy, but then as a result of, doing so much of the yang's tensing, contracting, I became tight. I remember I had some like like my ovaries. I had like polycystic ovaries for like a moment because I was training too hard, and my periods were all irregular. Yes,
Wow.
I'm having right in it. 5 minutes and I'm talking about my periods already. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I think that's great. I mean, I didn't know that could happen. So you taught me something 5 minutes into this conversation right there. I had no idea.
No, I was really overdoing it, and I got really tight. And that's sort of where I found yoga. Went to my first yoga class, really enjoyed it. And I tried a whole series of yoga classes, and I found that I didn't turn to yoga for my core or power strengthening. I don't look to yoga for that sort of embodiment, because I had it with ritual, or I had it with, functional HIIT training. But I really enjoy the more subtle, softer aspects of the longer stretches, simpler movements that you can make complicated in some ways, because you can
Hmm.
focus on a simple movement, but when you add the quality and presence, you can really make that simple movement quite complex, right?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and essentially, I went through a little quarter life crisis. I packed up everything and moved to Bali for a year, because that's what you do when you want to mimic that eat, pray, love strategy.
Hey, I'm raising
Um,
my hand here too.
yeah, girl. Yeah. Yeah. I just got out of a relationship, quite a long one. I had, put a pause in my job, and I wanted to explore my yoga and meditation route. So that's sort of when it started, where I got my
But
trainings. Yeah.
before we go into trainings,
Mm.
can we rewind a little bit and go back to how you ended up? Because I think besides discovering ritual, and the high intensity fitness side of it, you were also very involved with your career at the time, right?
Hmm.
Which I think also took up a lot of space, and that was your world. So could we talk a little bit about that as well, and to understanding how that really shaped your energy at that time, right? Because I think I could be wrong, but that would also play a role in the whole your eat, pray, love journey of understanding, is this still what I want to be doing?
For sure.
Right?
For
Yeah. So
sure. Yeah, I mean, for the longest time now, I've just been a serial freelancer. And this has been a personal journey for me as well, just trying to narrow my focus and see what really matters, and, saying no to certain projects and really trying to focus. But for the longest time, I was doing a job, but then also freelancing in the live entertainment space, live event space. These jobs would come sporadically, so it kept me, it was all manageable, right? I had enough bandwidth for that. But what my live event hosting taught me was essentially how to be a lady. I am rather wild. I don't wear makeup. I hardly ever brush my hair. And, my manager, she essentially took me under her wing, and she trained me. And she's the only person I'm really scared of in this world. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. She's amazing. She's sort of old school entertainment here in Singapore, and she she trained me, she manicured me, not manicured me. What's the word? She just made me into a presentable lady.
She packaged you.
Packaged, yeah, packaged.
It's a skill set
Yeah.
too. So we have to give
No,
her,
for
yeah,
sure.
skill set.
For sure. For sure. But I knew that, my passions and what I wanted to study was in the yoga, health, that
Mm,
that world.
okay.
And whatever I learned, like physically through the hosting that I've done in my life, in front of big crowds and, on TV and online, it sort of it equipped me with the tools to then maybe marry the two one day and share it together. So I never look at them separately. Like it's obviously with this whole pandemic, the events have been tapered off. Most of my work is in voiceovers now, but they're all, you're all a sum of your own experiences. So all those times on stage, that they're all going to be embedded in me, and
Right.
that's going to be shared through whatever I choose to share.
Yeah.
Right?
But
Yeah.
the hosting period, was that always something you wanted to do, or was it just kind of like it happened? You just met the right people at the right time, and was there like
Yeah.
confusion during that period or two of like, but this isn't really what I want to be doing. Why am I, like being pulled in different directions and trying to decide like,
Yeah.
in your 20s,
No,
like it's
for sure, my don't give a fuck attitude, when I had to be all prim and proper and stand in a certain way, and I did have a little conflict there, but then I just grew up. I stopped complaining. It's like you count your blessings. Like you're given this opportunity to make quite good money, being a host, and you're not sharing what you want to share. You're being the voice, you're being the face of what someone else's ideas, right? So you're almost a conduit. And at first it was quite like, but this isn't me, I'm yoga, I'm this, I'm that. But it's like when you shift your sort of, you're the conduit. This is a blessing. You should be grateful for being in this position, having this opportunity. And things just changed from there. And that kind of came after my Eat, Pray, Love little segment in Bali, I would say.
yeah, yeah.
And,
That's
when I realized when I moved back to Singapore and was like, oh, actually, this is what I should be doing. You don't need to run to Bali to find yourself. Like I literally ran to Bali to find myself, and then came back to Singapore and was doing the exact same thing as I did before I left, but just I think with a little bit more professionalism and
yes.
seriousness. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah. Right.
yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, okay, so we got that part. Then we can go back into when you were saying when you found, so you came back to Singapore and then you
Yeah,
found
I moved to
your,
Bali, had a
yeah.
good year. I traveled, I was a little lost. And then came back and essentially just continued doing what I'm doing. I took more trainings, 60 hours here and there that focused more on the yin style of yoga. And that's when I realized I wanted to specialize in this style. And it was in the Sarah Powers training that I took in Bali, actually, before the lockdown, last January 2020, where she's one of the founders of Yin, and she was very big player in that sort of the curation of the style. But so much of her training was on mindfulness
Yeah.
and on meditation, right? So it wasn't so much like the physicality of things, because that's, there are many trainings out there that focus on the anatomy and the physicality of the practice.
Right.
But it's just like when she was sharing the mindfulness part of it, I had realized how much I needed it for my own balance and mental health.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't realize that you're struggling or
Mhm.
that you're lost,
Yeah.
but then your behavior tells you otherwise. You just sort of go around and you don't really know what you're doing, and you're making bad decisions. You're not thinking ahead, and you don't realize that. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Just pause. Why are you doing this? Like, why are you hurting yourself? Why are you hurting other people at times? Like, is this because something in you is not Is there something to address, right? You know, and you just have to like it, and it completely opened me up to like, holy crap, this is first of all what I felt so passionate about immediately because it was something that I could use for my own sort of watering the seeds of my own compassion because I realized how much I actually didn't really have much self compassion, but and then yin and meditation, they just sort of marry together perfectly. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just as styles together. Yeah, for those of you who don't know what yin yoga is, I mean, it's essentially a hatha-based class that with the added dimension of time. So you hold these poses, and they're mainly floor-based poses for a longer period. Okay, and this allows us to get into the joints a little bit better. And instead of holding the breaths for like, or instead of breathing for 5 breaths, you're breathing for between 3 to 5 minutes. So there's plenty of time to access meditation, to practice your breath work. So it just all seemed to come in hand. And that's what I've decided is my path forward, which feels good.
When I did a yin training, I just only did a short one with Rachel
Mm,
Fernley and Jody Vassallo in Bali as well. I think what really fascinated me to the way they taught it was when they integrated the TCM part. So that was just so fascinating to me because it just suddenly everything made sense because you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like this meridian, and if you do this asana and it's opening this part, and it's
mm,
just like this added layer of awakening, which obviously is another. I think it's like a third element to the part of meditation, which is I think it's very powerful if you are open to experiencing it. But I was
mm.
curious to know if during your trainings or if any particular class you took, they often say those who take yin classes and they really kind of just let it all out and let it go, you have a very emotional experience. And I don't know if that happened for you and if you vividly remember that.
Yeah, I mean, with my students, with myself, for sure. Like I don't even think it has to be yin. I just think that when you put people into their bodies and they finally are in that place of presence where they're moving with intent and they're just being with what's here, that's when you create the space for all this stuff to come up. I don't think it's necessarily the body or a meridian that's helping that you do that. So it's funny. It was like, I mean, I'm quite open, right? I mean, and I've studied TCM philosophies, Ayurvedic philosophies. I don't share or I don't teach with that sort of as a backdrop for my themes, for example, just because it doesn't relate to everybody. And, my target student or audience is a little bit more on the corporate, they're stressful, high level executives that all they need to do is just calm down, right? They don't want to hear about the earth element and how it affects the spleen and stomach. They don't want to hear. I think, I love talking about the elements
Yeah.
because it's around us everywhere. You can see the elements manifest in everyday life. But I think for personally, I try to veer away from TCM, sharing about TCM, not because I ignore it or I don't validate it. It's just I know my audience, and that's
Yeah, of
sort
course.
of what I'm sticking to. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's holistic, right? It's holistic because you can add in like Ayurvedic applications to yin, TCM, and TCM is also it's great. The
Yeah.
meridians.
As there's so many tools, so it just
Mhm,
you obviously have been collecting a lot of these different tools and applying it, and you know your audience and what they need. Um,
mhm,
so you know the theme of the podcast here is talking about challenges and impactful moments, and
mm,
for you, what do you think those things would be in terms of all the things you've been
mm.
working out?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so, as I mentioned before, I was very physical, right? I had a lot of high energy in my 20s. And, for some people, it's wanting to be healthier. right? It's like they just can't get rid of this habit or this, this addiction of whatever kind, right? To transform yourself. A lot of it's in the body. Um, Mine was a bit more mental. I my early 20s were filled with so much adventure. And after college, I went to university in California, Chapman. After that, I just said, let me just take my savings and fuck it. I'm going to go backpack the world, stay in, $2 a night hostels, meet people. And, those are some of the high moments of my life. Right. But then when you sort of start to settle and you get into relationships and, you're drinking too much and, the demon comes out of you at times. And I started realizing that, okay, I felt like I was super sweet and nice. And then the moment a friend comes to me and goes, "Hey, yeah, Steph, you're being very selfish. Like that was not cool. Or like, I think you could have handled that differently." But back then, and I recall this very specifically with one of my best friends, she really sat me down and told me plainly, like, no, this is not cool. I just remember taking it without really wanting to look at it. Like I just went like, "What? No way. Like that's just you. Like you're being selfish or that's your perception. That's not me. I'm freaking perfect, y'all." Like literally I realized in my 20s, and again, I'm reminded day in and day out of my Facebook posts and my status updates, when I was backpacking. Man, I thought I was Gandhi, just throwing knowledge bombs like, yeah, I just thought I knew everything. And I really, really, really didn't. And, there's only so much that you can ignore until it comes sort of screaming back at you. And I don't know, there wasn't a particular moment or event. It
Yeah.
was just
Accumulation.
I realized that, listen, I need to build more lasting, fruitful relationships. Okay, not just in my friends, but in my lovers, and I need to really, really practice selfless love and just I think it all comes down to self compassion, man. When you love yourself, when you really love yourself, and you can treat yourself with that tenderness, you will automatically treat others with that same tenderness. I think I was running away a lot. I was very unsure, very unstable, and it reflected in how I was treating not only myself, but others. So that was sort of the trigger from, being a little bit more subtle, being a little bit more vulnerable, realizing that, oh, this is me,
Right. Right.
and the people that I love the most are telling me in their own ways that this is you and your tendencies, and now you can really look at yourself and instead of just ignoring it, you can look at yourself, and the practice is trying to hold yourself with a sense of kindness.
Right.
Because when that happens, and you can, it's so cliche, but when you do, when you're kind to yourself, you will be naturally kinder to others. It's so clear.
I
But yeah.
I just find that interesting because it almost sounds more like you had your ego very high up, in your
Mm.
20s, right? It's like my way, not my way or the highway, but just kind of like you are always very defensive in when in your relationships and something happens. It's like, what are you
Mm.
talking about? Like, there's nothing wrong with what I just did or my choices or whatnot. But at least for me, I think I had a lot of anger. I don't know if that was a case for you in terms of having like there was anger in there that like reflected in terms of the way you were responding to others, but also not really. For me it was more like not really understanding where that was coming from, like where is this anger coming from, or what am I unsatisfied with, or did I have insecurities, or am I not confident about certain things, and having to like work backwards and go, oh, this is why I behave this way, kind of what you were saying earlier, or like this is why I react this way towards these kind of people, or and so kind of going backwards and working on that to understand, right? And it's a very big step to take, like you said, where you kind of go, so like you said, it's not like one particular issue, it's just like an accumulation of things and feelings and energies, and those close to you are kind of, as we probably thought then, like nagging or saying these things, and you're like, why are you guys saying these things to me? It's not true. Or, are you saying I'm not good enough? But look at the life I'm living, like, kind of what you were saying. You're like, I'm independent. I'm here. I'm doing all these amazing things. Like, why are you guys saying these things about me? And really just then applying it. And I mean, I guess it's just that switch. And for everyone, that switch, when it turns on, it's like a different point. But
Exactly,
it's,
dude. And like, and yeah, different influence as well, right? Like some of the people that you're closest to will show you who you are, and those that you respect and love. So there's a point where you just choose to listen. Like, oh, okay. Because you're not, I remember, this isn't just you telling me. I have flashbacks of a friend telling me the exact same thing that you just said to me in a different way and another time. So maybe this isn't you or the other person. This is something that I need to freaking look back at myself, like, okay, we can do this better, Steph. We can do this better,
yeah. Do you feel like thus far with what you've been doing and healing, in the mental space and attitude and energy, that um, people around you have shifted? Some people you used to gather with more have now kind of slowly, you don't see them as much, and you've kind of entered a space with other people. And how has that changed for you?
Yeah, I don't have much bandwidth for many new friends, to be honest. This is very 10 years ago. I would not be saying those sentences because I just wanted to be friends with everybody. But what I can say is that the friends that I have been with me through, low times and high times, and the fact that there's acceptance there. I'm feeling a bit better being vulnerable around them. And I actually find that when I am vulnerable around them or when they talk to me, it's just so much more, there's a sense of belonging, whereas I think my strategy before was like, okay, crap, she's seen that not so glamorous side of me right now. Okay, well, I'm just going to push them away. Let's find new friends now so they can see my best, brightest side. But no, man, every light has a shadow. You got to embrace them both.
Yeah.
I love my friends and all their flaws. You know what I mean? It's like that acceptance that's so freeing for everybody, So I don't think I've necessarily like pushed anyone away and made space for new. I've just been more mindful of my own sort of energy reserves and what I choose to share, and who I choose to share it with. And I'm thankful I've got a beautiful partner who's such a wonderful teacher for me. He's we're good teachers for each other. So I think it's important to have relationship in your life, so that someone will call you out on your bullshit, man. Or else you're not going to grow, right?
How did you guys meet?
Oh, well, so he's actually the founder of Ritual. so, so he was technically my boss for a short period of time.
Okay.
He was my boss for like about 2 years before I moved to Bali. And then
Okay.
I sort of took a break. And then after that whole hiatus, we came back or I came back to visit, ran into him at a coffee shop and went on a date that night and just found that there were sparks flying.
Oh.
And it's cool because we were so platonic when we were working for each other. It was such a, like, I respected him so much. Like whenever we had to go for meetings, I'd get all sweaty and I'd have like a crystal that I would rub. A crystal. I'd have a crystal that I'd rub in my hand so that it would it would take the nervous energy out from my being and transmit into the crystal. But I just think that respect was there. We were very close. We shared a lot of things with each other that, in hindsight, if we knew that we'd be in this position now, we probably wouldn't have shared with each other.
Oh.
But it's friends first. He knows me. He knows me better than I know myself. And
Right.
he's a CEO, and he's just got so much more experience than me. So he does act as a mentor for a lot of things. I
Yeah.
run things by with him. something new's happening, I ask for his opinions, and it's
Yeah.
nice to have
Yeah.
a lover in a room like that.
Maybe we can do like an episode with the two of you next, and
Oh,
we
you
can
should. I mean, you should
we can
definitely,
talk
yeah,
about that.
yeah. He's a fun one to communicate with as well. So.
That would be fun.
Mm.
Oh, I wanted to ask about your voice artist, because I think that was really
Mm.
fun to learn about in terms of what does a voice artist do?
So it's actually voice over artist.
A voice over
So
artist.
so
Okay.
yes. So as the name suggests, I do commercials, documentaries as a voice. So I absolutely love this work because, as I've told you, I do some commercials and as a commercial model, and again, layers of makeup on my face, like high heels, they don't resonate with me, Whereas like I'm going to a voiceover right after our meeting
Yeah.
today, and I can just go with, sweats on, my a hat, and just go in there. As long as my voice is warmed up, we're good to go. But essentially voiceover artists, they're the voice, right? Whether you're doing a commercial, doing a documentary, and I've loved learning about the intricacies that go into becoming a voiceover artist. There's so much to it.
Yeah.
And again, I think that stems from my experience as a host, right? Like I said, you
Right.
can't separate anything, right? Everything sort of fuses in, merges together. So, but yeah, I enjoy that work very much.
That's so fun.
Mm.
Which one's your favorite voiceover you've done?
There was a cool documentary that I filmed in Singapore. It's a 5-part series. You know that Netflix show Explained?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Okay, it's like it's a really cool way of like talking about real life scenarios. But anyways, it was a documentary that was featured on Channel News Asia called Ahead of Their Time, and it essentially compared sort of the same industries now, so that exists now compared to what it was like, back in the day. So,
Right.
for example, Vestron and Netflix, right? They were sort of the same kind of company, but why did Vestron fail and why is Netflix working now?
Okay.
Corn Foods versus Impossible. What was it? Polaroid versus TikTok. It's just it was a
Fun.
very cool. Yeah, the documentary style is fun because you can just talk naturally. Commercials require a little bit more preciseness, if
Right.
that's a word.
Right.
Precision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you only do English, or do you also do some Chinese, or
No 啦，English 啦，my
English law?
Chinese is 不好，真的不好。The moment I moved from Taiwan, oh gosh,
You
my
threw that
mom
back.
sent me to Taida. My mom sent me to Taida to study Chinese, and I don't know, mom, I don't know.
Oh.
I
All
try
right,
to
well,
visit my notebooks every now and then, but
uh, it's okay. It might come back. Like you said earlier, everything, it just threads together at some point.
听得懂就可以了，好不好？
听得懂就可以了. Yes, 听得懂就可以了. Yeah, that's not a problem. Okay, so we're running out of time, but I wanted you to share a few advice or 2 cents for others who, might be finding themselves in that state of like transitioning of where, basically this whole self-love compassion part we were talking about,
Mm,
how to be
yeah.
how to find the courage to face it and to recognize, there are certain things you might need to cut off, or habits you need to change, and, environments you need to be in to really allow you to thrive. If you have any wise
Of
words.
course. Of course. The first thing that comes to my mind is this. So, I'm in the middle of a meditation certification. It's a 2-year program run by Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield. And they're essentially the teachers that brought meditation to the West, in the 80s and 90s, and made it a thing, right?
Yes.
One of what a technique that Tara Brach has shared that I've used to harness and hone self compassion is the RAIN meditation. So RAIN is a acronym, RAIN. The R stands for recognize, right? And in this stage, you're really recognizing that something isn't, not that anything's wrong with you, but something needs to change. Like there's an emotion that you're carrying around, or a resistance somewhere, or something you're not proud of, or, okay, just recognizing that it's there, right? That's like always the first step with anything. So if there's a habit someone wants to change, okay, this is what it is, right?
Yeah. Awareness.
So then the A of RAIN is allowing it. So what happens is, like, so much of the times is like we resist this negative thing that we don't like about ourselves, right? But when you resist it, it always persists. Like it keeps coming back, and it keeps manifesting in its own way, sometimes stronger, sometimes in a different flavor. But if we just like allow it to be there, like if you're struggling with food addiction, for example, and you realize, okay, this is my food addiction, you recognize it, you just allow those feelings of, like, guilt, shame, whatever, just to come up and just to sit with it, because this is what's there, which leads into that third stage of the I, which is investigate. So, what do I need right now to make me feel these feelings a bit less, or manage this thing a little bit better? Do I need more support from family? Do I need more support from my friends? What do I need? Like, investigate where you feel it in the body. And then the N of RAIN, nurture, is just offer yourself a little bit of kindness. Like, and the I and the N sort of go together in the sense of, like, you can say something like, it's going to be okay to yourself. Like, you can still, you still love yourself. I love you and I'm sorry. It's okay. Just adding a little bit of care to that awareness, I think, helps a lot with sort of building or harnessing that self-compassion, which I think when you're more aware of things, you'll naturally lead to change, right? It's that resistance that causes people to just keep through those cycles until,
Yeah.
God knows when, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes forever.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, yeah. That was what I wanted to share, and because it's been a very useful tool for me. But you can find more information on that. RAIN meditation, Tara Brach,
Jack Kornfield.
there's some guided meditations out there as well.
Yeah, I will put all the relevant links, including
Sweet.
how to find you and your classes, and some of these other ritual, all the other things we've talked about in this episode for people to follow. But yeah, I think that's all the time we have for today. So thanks for your self-compassion and learning.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. So nice to be able to share. And thanks to all for listening.
Yeah, thanks to all those listening. And maybe we'll try to coordinate some sort of virtual event where we can have others participate, and learn a little bit more about yin yoga and meditation through you. Yes. So until next time.
Hey, ciao.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired, and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.